I'm Luke Summerhays, and I love Anorith. Perhaps the most successful order of creatures to have ever lived were the trilobites, living all over the globe and surviving for more than 270 million years, more than half the time life has even existed on Earth. The oceans of the ancient Earth looked very different from our waters today, teeming with invertebrate creatures. The trilobites were the most ubiquitous, and their flat, segmented fossils can still be found everywhere today. Though the trilobites were able to survive 2 mass extinction events, they aren't still with us. One of the factors in their eventual inevitable extinction was their predation by our ocean's first superpredators, the Anomalocaris, a squid-like monster with 2 appendages which it used to drag prey towards its powerful circular mouth. Anorith is a bug and rock Pokémon which can be obtained by reviving a claw fossil. Its overall shape is very similar to the Anomalocaris, with claws at the front of its face and eyes on protrusions to the side, swimming through the waters with multiple legs along its side. However, its body has a segmented, armoured shell, much more like a trilobite. Anorith has poetic beauty as a fossil Pokémon, combining one of the most ubiquitous kinds of fossil in the trilobite and one of the most mysterious in the Anomalocaris. That predator's existence had only sporadic evidence until quite late in the history of paleontology, with some of the lingering questions finally being answered by a joint Japanese/British scientific effort. The name Anorith combines the anomalous part of Anomalocaris with the suffix lith, which associates it with rocks. The Japanese name, Anoth, is similar, though perhaps references the arthropods, which trilobites are counted among. When the Pokédex describes Anorith's behaviour, it is very explicitly like that of the Anomalocaris more than the trilobite. Pokémon Sapphire tells us, Anorith is said to be a type of Pokémon predecessor, with 8 wings at the sides of its body. This Pokémon swam in the primordial sea by undulating these 8 wings. Pokémon Ruby tells us, Anorith was regenerated from a prehistoric fossil. This primitive Pokémon once lived in warm seas. It grips its prey firmly between its 2 large claws. Ultra Moon tells us, this is one kind of primeval bug Pokémon. With 8 wings, it could apparently swim a lot faster than you'd expect. And finally, Pokémon Shield tells us, Anorith can swim swiftly by pulling its 8 wings through the water like oars on a boat. This Pokémon is an ancestor of modern bug Pokémon. While Anomalocaris swam through the waters and swooped down to attack prey, trilobites were bottom feeders who clung to the ocean floor and relied on their sturdy shells for defense. The Anomalocaris was one of the first real animal predators to evolve, and the multitude of trilobite fossils taught us much about the nature of evolution in the real world. Appropriately enough then, at level 40, Anorith can evolve into Armaldo. Armaldo takes the segmented, insectoid, trilobite-like carapace of Anorith and wraps it around a Kaiju body type, the hulking dinosaur-like body shape we see on a lot of Pokémon, which is very reminiscent of the suitmation outfits from classic Japanese sci-fi films. The last Godzilla movie before the release of the very first Pokémon games was Godzilla vs. Destoroyah, in which Godzilla fights a monster which mutated from a trilobite, and which evolves through multiple stages during the film. We know the Game Freak team were big Godzilla and Ultraman fans, from various references in early games and design documents, so I believe they probably took a little bit of inspiration from this particular flick. Armaldo's design is a little cuter than the horrifying Destoroyah, with nice soft blue colours, smooth rounded shell segments, and a calm face. This time the Pokédex talks about Armaldo walking rather than swimming, which is much more trilobite-like behaviour. Pokémon Ruby tells us, Armaldo's tough armor makes all attacks bounce off. This Pokémon's 2 enormous claws can be freely extended or contracted. They have the power to punch right through a steel slab. Pokémon Sapphire tells us, Armaldo is a Pokémon species that became extinct in prehistoric times. This Pokémon is said to have walked on its hind legs, which would have been more convenient for life on land. Pokémon Emerald tells us, Armaldo usually lives on land. However, when it hunts for prey, it dives beneath the ocean. It swims around using its 2 large wings. These Pokédex entries start to hint at the creature leaving the oceans and walking onto land. This was another very important moment in the history of life on Earth, and Pokémon Ultra Moon's Pokédex made it very explicit. Armaldo adapted from living in water to living on land. It has been determined that it is the ancestor of some bug Pokémon. Some trilobites did make it onto the land, though they were beaten to it by their close cousins who are still with us today, like scorpions, spiders, and crabs. Armaldo's name, which is the same in Japanese and in English, combines armor and old, which describes it pretty nicely. The Pokémon had a brief niche in the competitive game as one of the only Gen 3 Pokémon with the move Knock Off, which allowed it to displace opponents' held items. With this ability to negate leftovers, its typing, and an overall defensive bent, Armaldo was a good match for competitive mainstay Snorlax. Since its glory days, Armaldo has become a little obsolete, much like the animals which inspired it. But I can't help but continue to have a soft spot for a Pokémon which combines fascinating paleontology with a big dumb kaiju. Music for Luke Love's Pokémon was composed by Jonathan Cromie. Artwork for the show is by Katie Groves. Writing, producing, and editing is all by me, Luke Summerhaze, while funding is provided by our lovely listeners over on Patreon, at patreon.com/podcastiopodcastius, where you can find links to the other shows my friends and I create. I love to hear from listeners with your thoughts and feelings about the Pokémon you love too. Get in touch about the next monsters, Feebas and Castform, or with your thoughts, feelings, and observations about any other Pokémon, over on Twitter or Facebook at LukeLovesPKMN. And if you like hearing me bang on about Japanese history and extinct animals, Pokémon Legends Arceus is out by the time you hear this, and I am most definitely streaming it at twitch.tv/LukeLovesPKMN. I love Anorith, and remember, I love you too.